black-necked stilts and American Avocets belong to the same family, Recurvorostridae. And they're both pretty gregarious and forage in sort of the same way, not quite exactly the same. Looks like we've got a younger California goldback there. Let's see. Oh, okay, we've got a bunch of fly-ins. Oh, look at this. We have a whole bunch of, well, I don't know if you guys can see it quite yet, but we've got a whole bunch of white-faced ibis flying in. Bring those guys in. Oh, there they are. Okay. Nice. Now, this time of year, the white-faced ibis don't really live up to their name. Their faces are not white at all, especially not if they're juveniles. So they're called white-faced ibis because during the breeding season, adults will have, well, they always have this kind of a reddish skin on the face, just right behind the eyes. But during the breeding season, it's bordered by these white, this white feathering that really stands out, hence the name white-faced ibis. But of course, this time of year, during the non-breeding season, they're lacking that feature. So they're definitely, they're still technically white-faced ibis, but not white-faced right now. These guys, let's see here if I can pick out, they're a little far away, so it's going to be kind of tough for me to pick out adults from juveniles. But adult white-faced ibis this time of year, they're still going to have that kind of reddish skin behind the eyes, but it's going to lack that white border. And then the juveniles, they're going to have kind of the skin around the eyes or near the eyes is going to be, it's not going to be reddish as it is in adults. It's going to be kind of a more of a grayish color, if I'm not mistaken. So another difference between breeding plumage and non-breeding plumage in this species is the coloring on the neck. During breeding season, these white-faced ibis are going to have these kind of bright reddish, orangish, kind of brownish necks. But during the non-breeding season, do you think we could zoom in maybe just a little closer on some of these guys? Yeah, okay, so during the non-breeding, oh, there we go. During the non-breeding season, they're going to kind of lack that orangish, reddish coloring on the neck. It's going to kind of be replaced by this kind of duller brownish color with a lot of streaking. Oh, I'm hearing a bunch of long-billed dowitchers out there. Another thing to note too, is they're going to have these white-faced ibis as adults. They're going to have these reddish eyes that juveniles lack. Ooh, okay. Oh, there we go. Let's see if I can. Oh, we got a bunch of sleeping shovelers. Oh, a long-billed dowitcher there on the right. Nice. Now, the long-billed dowitchers are quite common here during the fall and winter. And we notice too, they do live up to their name. They've got these long bills, and these guys are exhibiting their classic foraging strategy. Dowitchers are known for, I guess this kind of like needling foraging strategy. So they're kind of just probing, kind of rapidly probing in and out of the muddy substrate, kind of rapidly, almost like they're like a sewing needle in sort of in a way. These here look to be, from what I can tell, these are all non-breeding adults. They have these kind of grayish backsides. If these were juveniles, there would be a lot of rufous edging on the feathers on the backside. Yeah, dowitchers being dowitchers. I wasn't here for this, but yesterday there was a juvenile short-billed dowitcher out here. Now, one thing that is a lot of people regard as quite a challenge is differentiating between short-billed and long-billed dowitcher. And I'll admit it definitely can be challenging, particularly when we're dealing with non-breeding adults. That gets a little bit tricky. But when you're dealing with breeding adults and juveniles, there are some easier ways to tell the difference. And despite what their names suggest, you definitely don't want to rely exclusively on bill length, because They both have long beaks, and there definitely is some overlap. So don't go by, just like I said, despite what the name suggests, you do not want to go by that exclusively. So breeding adults, long-billed dowitchers will have a uniformly orange belly, and on the sides of the neck and breast, they're going to have these kind of darker bars, I guess you could say. Whereas the short-billed dowitcher, and there's different subspecies or different breeding populations, and they are going to vary in plumage a little bit, but generally speaking, they will have some white in the belly that you're not going to see in long-billed dowitchers, and also on the sides of the neck and breast, the short-billed dowitcher will have some spotting rather than barring. And when it comes to differentiating between the juveniles of the species, there are some surefire ways to tell the difference. Juvenile short-billed dowitchers are going to have these kind of orange buffy breasts, whereas juvenile long-billed are going to have grayer breasts, and both juveniles of both species will have rufous edging on the feathers on the backside. So look out for that. Let's see, who do we have in here now? Okay.
Need to work on the focus, but
oh, there we go. Okay, and
yeah.
Oh, looks like we got some. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got some Gadwall there, toward the back, swimming away from us. Now, Gadwall are definitely not the most brightly plumaged duck that you're ever going to see, but they are still quite distinctive looking. And in my opinion, that's primarily because of the shape of their head. They've got this really unique slope to the forehead. It gives them a very distinguished look, if you ask me. Let's see. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, a bunch of sleepy northern shovelers and a very busy American Avocet swimming. And they're right there in the foreground, kind of more on the right-hand side. We've got a white-faced ibis. Now, there is also a glossy ibis, which if there were one here, that would be quite remarkable. Let's see. Do we have a ruddy? I'm not seeing any ruddies.
Oh, okay.
I saw a really big beak. Not quite focused enough. All right, thank you, Judy. Okay, yeah, a bunch of long-billed dowitchers with their faces kind of going in and out of it. Well, they're not submerging their heads, but their faces are getting really close to the water. But yeah, probing up and down continually. They're showing machine-like foraging behavior. So yeah, that's one thing to look out for with dowitchers. Dowitchers is just, yeah, watch out for that needle-like foraging behavior. And on the long beaks as well. Some pretty surefire indications that you're looking at a dowitcher.
Ruddy Ducks are way over in here.
Ah, okay, so kind of out of range, essentially?
Well,
okay.
They're on the far side.
Ah, okay. Well, we've also got some American white pelicans out here, which unfortunately they're farther away now than they were to begin with, but I think maybe focusing on them would be nice.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, nice.
Swimming fast.
Oh, wow, look at those guys. Now, one fun thing about them, of course, it's non-breeding season, so they're going to lack this feature right now. But during the breeding season, they have this really large knob on top of their beaks. It's really distinctive looking. So if you can catch them during the spring or earlier summer, yeah, look out for that knob. Oh, we got some California gulls making some noise. Northern shovelers flying in. One thing that when I was talking earlier about the differences between short-billed and long-billed dowitcher, there's a handful of, or two particular things I forgot to mention, and I'll mention the less important thing before I mention the more important thing. One feature that I find to be a little more conspicuous during the non-breeding season is in the long-billed dowitcher, So they've got this white arc on the underside of the eye. Now the short-billed dowitcher has that too, but it definitely stands out more in the long-billed dowitcher, especially as non-breeding adults, at least in my opinion. So yeah, look for that white under eye arc, the really conspicuous white under eye arc in the long-billed dowitcher. But what's more important than that, what will really clinch that ID is vocalizations. And bear with me here because I'm a lot better at identifying bird sounds than I am at mimicking them. In fact, I'm pretty terrible about mimicking them, as you're about to find out. Short-billed dowitchers, they've got this kind of loud, repetitive toot-toot-toot, and that was awful, call note, whereas actually, Robert, if you could play that. Okay, Robert's gonna save the day. Okay, so Robert's gonna play the flight call of the short-billed dowitcher. And I'll put this closer so you can hear that. Oh no, okay, so it's playing in his ears, so, okay. Okay, let's do the flight call. The third one? Oh, they don't have it. Okay. Well, the sound that I typically hone in on is these kind of really rapid 222 flight calls. The long-billed dowitcher, what I typically hear from them is these kind of typically single-noted, high-pitched keek calls. So study those vocalizations and really hone in on that because that will absolutely clinch the ID. If there's any doubt, that will erase it for sure. Oh, there we go. That's the short-billed. A really rapid 222. Oh, those are pelicans. And that's the long-billed. Yeah, really high-pitched peak sort of calls. Oh yeah, very, very distinct from one another. So that's extremely helpful.
Still on the pelicans. You want to move this now?
So do we have any Yellowlegs out here? There's one thing I'd like to talk about too. Typically we have greater Yellowlegs out here. I'm surprised that we haven't seen any on this pond yet. I was gonna, if there were one, I'd have us focus on that and wanted to kind of talk about some of the differences between greater and lesser Yellowlegs, because that's one that I've noticed kind of trips people up a lot. And you know, when I was starting out too, that's one that I struggled with. I had a really hard time with that, unless of course the two birds were side by side, in which case it's pretty obvious which is which, but a lot of times that isn't the case. So I'm going to kind of talk about some of the tricks for differentiating between the two. But you know what, even though we're not seeing them, I'm going to kind of just briefly talk about that anyways, while we're looking for something else to focus on. So the greater Yellowlegs, as their name suggests, are larger in size. They not only that, they have larger beaks, larger and like heavier and longer beaks than the lesser Yellowlegs do. And the greater Yellowlegs, so their beaks are heavier at the base. Their beaks are bicolored, and it's definitely, I guess you could say the lesser Yellowlegs does have a somewhat lighter base to the beak, but it's a lot more obvious in the greater Yellowlegs. And not only that, the greater Yellowlegs has a really slight upturn to the beak. And they'll also pay attention to the length of the beak. The beak on the greater Yellowlegs is going to be about 1 1/4, relative to the length of the head. It's going to be, I'd say, 1 1/4 times the length of the head. Whereas the lesser Yellowlegs, its beak is going to be shorter and thinner, just more needle-like. But it's gonna, if you look at the length of it, it's gonna be scarcely longer than the length of the head.
And I think I have one.
Oh,
way.
oh, okay. So and not in the most so we do have a greater Yellowlegs, but it's not in a really good spot. But here in the camera right now, of course, we've got a bunch of American Avocets. Most of them have their heads tucked back. We got one in the front there that's preening. Yeah, look, oh yeah, look at that gorgeous black and white wing pattern. Got several California gulls, most with their heads tucked back. Let's see, what do we have here that we haven't focused on yet? Yeah, a whole bunch of northern shovelers, which we've seen. Oh wow, yeah, the shovelers are making a lot of noise. We have a great egret that is to the west of us. So I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope that it lands and give us something to look at. And we had an American crow just fly over. I bet you guys are all super jealous because you've probably never seen one or gotten a good look. Okay, obviously kidding. Okay, so our great egret has landed on the side of the canal. Here, well, the canal is close to us, but the section of it where the great egret landed, unfortunately, is not as close as I'd like it to be. But let's see if we can bring this guy in. Oh yeah, look at that statuesque body and that solid yellow beak. Oh, yeah, black legs too. Oh yeah, look at that. Of course, I mean, I feel sorry for any fish or frogs that happen to swim by, but I'm hearing a killdeer. And a few things that I was seeing and hearing earlier that unfortunately are not making their presence known right now. There were some savanna sparrows out here. I did not see them, but I did hear them. They have these really dainty little sort of call notes. And the habitat that we have along here, kind of leading down to the shoreline, kind of open ground with kind of short grasses. That's absolutely ideal for them. So here in the next, I'd say next few weeks, we'll probably start to see a lot more savanna sparrows. And of course, they will be here all winter and into at least part of the spring. And we also had some horned larks out here, and that's another species that absolutely loves open country with like barren or, sparsely vegetated ground. And unfortunately, not seeing or hearing either one of those right now, so you'll have to just take my word for it. We also had a bunch of tree swallows. They were not over this pond, but a few ponds south of us. Now, pretty much around here, at least in my experience, if you're seeing swallows or a swallow and it's past breeding season or it's well into the fall or winter, you've pretty much got tree swallows. And what you want to look for with them is a nice clean white throat, nice clean white underbelly, and kind of a bluish, really dark and iridescent bluish green backside, which is generally a little duller in females or sometimes considerably duller. Gosh, oh wow, I tried to find some stuff behind us, but the glare on the reflection of the sun on the water is a little bit much. So I want to show you guys all the birds, but it's not quite worth going blind over, so I'll refrain from that. Oh yeah, we got three male Gadwall fairly close by. Be kind of fun to focus on those guys if we can, kind of look at some of their features, talk about what makes them. They're right in front of where the white-faced ibis are. Oh no. Okay, well I'll talk about them here momentarily and about the peregrine that we saw out here this morning that unfortunately has not made its presence known out here yet. Oh, a bunch of long-billed Dowitchers just took off and uttering those single-noted keek call notes. So we're trying to focus in on some Gadwall. Looks like we've got a few males there. And like I said, not the flashiest ducks. They don't stand out anywhere near as much as, say, like a breeding male Ruddy Duck or breeding male wood duck or something like that would. But nonetheless, I think they are quite handsome, very distinctive looking. So once we get those in, I'm seeing one. Okay, oh, right there. Okay, right there, front and center. Got a gorgeous male Gadwall. Oh yeah, look at that, the black wing with the, oh, okay, nice. You can see that white stripe, kind of a brownish gray head. But when they lift their, unfortunately, they're all preening right now, so they're not, oh wait, one of them just lifted its head. Yeah, but yeah, they're all preening, so they're not making it the easiest to kind of check out the shape of that head and look at the slope on the forehead. But when they do lift their heads and hold still momentarily, yeah, pay attention to that. Their shape is really distinctive, as I mentioned. But and also, okay, so yeah, look at that black rump patch as well. That's another key diagnostic feature. Yeah, black rump patch, a white patch in the wings, and a grayish heads, or grayish brown head, neck, and breast. But yeah, look at the shape of that head. That's what we really want to hone in on, or one of the things we really want to hone in on. So one thing that I had hoped we would see out here, because we saw a whole bunch of them driving up to this location, was a bunch of least sandpipers. And unfortunately, even though there is some pretty suitable foraging habitat out here, we do have some exposed mud right along the shorelines. We're not seeing any least sandpipers, which, you know, it is surprising to me because they are quite common out here. I wanted to kind of talk about those a little bit. If you tuned into the virtual tour of this same location that we did last fall, you might remember me mentioning that they are the world's smallest shorebird. You might also remember me mentioning that they have, compared to other peep sandpipers, the lesser yellowlegs has lighter legs, and to remember, least lighter legs. Well, that is important. Ooh, sorry guys, I got distracted. Some shorebirds are flying over. Those look very Dowitchery to me. So I'm gonna play a numbers game and assume those are probably long-billed Dowitchers. But yeah, with least sandpipers, there's these teeny tiny sandpipers. I mean, if you see them from far away, they look like, and they look like almost like little mice kind of scurrying along in the mud. But yeah, they have lighter legs than other peep sandpipers. Like, you know, for instance, your western sandpiper, your semi-palmated, your white-rumped, and which would be really rare to see out here, the white-rumped, and your Bairds. But you don't want to rely exclusively on the color of the legs, because that can often get obscured, particularly when either you can't see their legs, or if they've been foraging in a particularly muddy habitat and their legs become covered in mud. So there's a few other things to focus on. The least sandpiper, as I mentioned, is going to be the smallest. And when you see it next to a western sandpiper that's just slightly larger, that difference in size is actually going to be pretty noticeable. But not only that, say this time of year, if we're looking at non-breeding adults, say if there's a western sandpiper and a least sandpiper really close to one another, one thing you're going to notice is that the western sandpiper overall looks noticeably paler than the least sandpiper. The non-breeding adult least sandpipers will have these brownish breasts and kind of brownish backsides. So do we have something? That looks, okay, let me try to get, that tail looks, okay, let me see, that looking almost northern pintailish to me with that tail.
I thought I
Yeah, I'm getting some northern pintail vibes from that. Where are we? Okay, let me see if I can bring that in with my binoculars. I'm not getting the clearest image there on the computer screen. So we might have a female northern pintail. I think we do. I'm going to try to bring that in with my binoculars. Let's get that better. What, can you tell me where it is out here?
To the left and forward of all the other birds there. It's by itself, right up there. It's always got its head down.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I see now. Okay, I'm trying to get it. That looks like a female northern pintail to me. Judy, what do you say?
Well, I've been
Like on its skin, it's a white crescent. It's a white crescent. Can't see it now because I'm on this.
Yeah, now okay, now that tail's looking a little less pointed to me. Now, if only it were a male, it would be. Sorry, guys. I'm. Now it's kind of out here by its lonesome, right? Okay.
I'm not still not on the grid.
All by itself. Dark shape.
Way back
Way over
near the
line with that pole.
This duck is stumping us. Bear with us, guys. It's really bright. Now, at first I was thinking female northern pintail, where the females of that species look, I mean, markedly different than the males. But even so, they've got these rather pointed tails. I'm nowhere near as long as what you'd see in the male, but that I thought I was picking that up initially, but
Pretty small compared to the
yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm thinking that perhaps a female teal of some sort. Yeah, I'm thinking probably a female teal. The beak doesn't look quite as, at least not from what I could see, it doesn't look quite as spatulate as what I'd expect for a cinnamon tail.
Through the binoculars, it looks like a bit of a white crescent on it. It's like a
So it could be blue winged. Yeah, that's a definite possibility. So for now, we're going to call this a female teal species. The jury's definitely still out on that. Trying to find anything else that we have not focused on yet.
Well, if you want it, I don't know if you can go far enough, but it's pretty much on the far shore and move to the left. You'll run into a few ruddies.
Oh, okay. See if we can get some ruddy ducks. Something we haven't seen yet. Oh, okay. I think we have some smaller shorebirds flying in. Oh, more long-billed dowitchers. Okay, sorry guys.
The two pelicans that are over by themselves over here, there's a couple of, well, there were a couple of ruddies.
Okay.
Now they're to the left.
way up.
Okay, there were a couple of pelicans. If you just keep going left, you run into them.
Okay, so we got
Near the far shore.
some ruddy ducks out here we're going to try to focus in on. One really awesome thing about ruddy ducks is that they really don't present much of an ID challenge, whereas you get some of the females of some other species, namely teal, that can get a little bit challenging, as you noticed a few moments ago, and we're puzzling over this one female duck out here. But ruddy ducks are very distinctive, both the males and the females. Even in their non-breeding plumage, the males are still just as distinctive. I mean, they're not quite as handsome in their non-breeding plumage, but they are equally recognizable in both breeding and non-breeding plumage. The male ruddy ducks will have these really broad white cheek patches. The females, they're not as handsome as the males, but they're still, if you ask me, just as distinctive. They've got this dark cap and this dark striping through the cheeks, which makes them very, very easily recognizable as female ruddy ducks. And of course, they've got this unique posture with their tails kind of curved upward, and they've got these kind of flatter beaks. So they are pretty distinctive looking, even just by shape as well. Yeah, well, as Judy was just mentioning here, what I was saying about them keeping their tails curved upward is that makes them really distinctive even when they have their heads tucked away too. See here, these guys might be a little farther yeah, might be a little bit out of range for us to get a super clear view of them. Oh, okay, oh, I see in the right corner, I am seeing a ruddy duck there. I can see that tail curved upward or held upright. So you hone in on that. Unfortunately, I'm not, oh yeah, look at all those tails curved upward. Nice. Awesome. So in breeding season, males will have these bright kind of reddish brown or kind of like russety reddish brown bodies, and blue, yeah, ruddy colored, hence the name. And these really bright blue beaks. It's just kind of comical looking, but really cool. Right now, though, they're going to be they're going to lack that ruddy color. Let's see. And unfortunately, I can't really tell from here. Oh, okay. I can see. Oh, nice. Okay, I can see. Let me look at the computer. That's going to be way better. I could have sworn I saw. Oh yeah, we got some nails. So look at those broad white cheeks. I could have sworn I'd seen a ringneck duck in there. But I think that's wishful thinking on my part, because I'm not. Oh, yep. A white pelican, kind of video bombing a little bit. Yeah, I think the ringneck duck was wishful thinking on my part, so forget I said that.
I like how the ruddies are like our only duck that's in breeding plumage at a different time than all of our other ducks.
Yeah. I'm gonna check the chat here. He said, let's see, what was the chat said? Said, female duck identification gives me headaches. You are not alone in that. Not by any means. Yeah, it gets really tricky. It's a lot easier when their male counterparts are nearby, or if they have some sort of diagnostic feature, as in the female ruddy ducks. I'd say female American widgeon are pretty easy to identify, as well as our female wood ducks. I mean, there's a handful of them that are still pretty distinctive looking, but and female northern shovelers as well. And that larger size, and we got some that large beak. Okay, who do we have flying above us? Looks like we have got oh yeah, we got some tree swallows. We probably won't be able to focus on these guys. They're these pretty swiftly moving targets, so we'll just have to take my word for it. But as I was mentioning earlier, that nice clean white throat, clean white underbelly. Oh, a greater Yellowlegs just called.
They're all across the road.
And of course, they're all across the road.
They've been doing fine.
So another, as I was mentioning, I was talking earlier about some of the physical characteristics that differentiate the greater Yellowlegs from the lesser Yellowlegs. And Robert, I might see if you can play. Oh, look at those pelicans.
Yeah.
I might see if you can play their vocalizations, because that's another that's another case where, you know, if you're looking at one that's standing on its own and you're like, oh, I'm just not sure if it's lesser or greater. If you hear their flight calls, that will clinch it. The greater Yellowlegs has this typically 3-noted. Yeah. Oh, here. Here. Robert's gonna play it right there. Yeah, notice that high-pitched 3-noted flight call from the greater Yellowlegs. And the lesser yellowlegs, it's this repetitive, two-noted, two really sharp, high-pitched flight call. So we'll have Robert play that for us as well. That's the lesser yellowleg. So yeah, vocalization is so key when it comes to differentiating between long-billed and short-billed dowitcher and lesser and greater yellowlegs. But if they're not vocalizing, oh, who do we have? Oh, we got some more long-billed dowitchers flying through.
I had what I presume is a yellow leg on the far shore.
Okay. By the tractors? Okay, well, we've got a, what Judy is pretty sure is a,
It's actually more just to the left of the little building and the piping equipment. To the left of that. See, R18, and it's down and to the left on the shore.
so we do have a greater yellowlegs out here. We're gonna try to focus in on that. I'd love to kind of show you some of the features that I was discussing earlier.
Far away.
Yeah, it's kind of far away, but if we could focus on that would be nice. So I can kind of show you some of the features that I was talking about, so you guys get a, get a mental picture of that rather than me, or get to see what it actually looks like rather than just hearing me gab on and on about it. Again, as I mentioned earlier, greater yellowlegs are larger. They're going to have thicker, longer beaks. Their beaks are going to be roughly 1 1/4 the length of the head. And they're going to have a really slight upturn. They're going to be very obviously bicolored, definitely lighter at the base. Whereas lesser yellowlegs are going to have a thinner, kind of overall darker, more needle-like beak that's going to be just slightly longer than the length of the head. Another fun little feature to focus in on, if you can see the birds up close, is greater yellowlegs are going to have knobbier knees than the lesser yellowlegs. Wow, just a fun little fact there. What do we have? Oh yes, okay, a very distant lesser yellowlegs. All right. Oh, sorry, greater yellowlegs. Well, see, I heard a greater yellowlegs call earlier, so I'm kind of defaulting to the assumption that that's the same individual, although I mean that's certainly not a guarantee. Oh, okay, Judy's seen at least 4.
Yeah, the wind's blowing the camera a little.
Yeah, the wind is not exactly our friend right now.
Shooting way across the pond.
Yes, so these guys are going to
400
have,
yards away.
oh yeah, look at that guy, but you can still see those bright yellow legs, and you notice too how heavy that beak is, especially at the base. Unfortunately, from this distance, we're not really going to be able to see how bicolored that beak is, but if you look closely, you can notice too it has a very, very slight upturn. It's, I mean, you've got to really look. It's not like in like a, an Avocet where it's very obviously upcurved, or even like a marbled godwit where the upcurve is subtle, but you can still see it. It's more subtle even than that. But yeah, I wish there were a lesser yellowlegs right next to this guy, because that would really drive some of these points home. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Now, I am hearing some high-pitched single-noted calls that sound a lot like long-billed dowitchers. Some of what I'm hearing is a long-billed dowitcher, but I'm also hearing avocets vocalized too. Some of their vocalizations are kind of similar, but I'd say that the avocet is definitely a little more high-pitched and a little more insistent. Oh, hearing an American crow in the distance. Ooh, let's see if we can get this avocet and stilt side by side that are kind of moving closer to us. I think that would be fun. So we've got an American avocet and a blackneck stilt that are foraging more or less side by side. or just at least just a few feet from each other. Oh, there we go. Nice. You can kind of see some of the, I mean, not that they're hard to tell apart, but this is nice. It kind of gives you a nice little side-by-side comparison there, and you can really pick apart some of the differences or the many differences. Yeah, avocet. So black-necked stilts will kind of pick along as they forage. Avocets, they don't do this all the time, but a lot of times they'll kind of sweep their beaks side to side through the water column as they're foraging. Oh, I'm hearing the northern shovelers. Oh, nice. There we go. Now, one thing, let me take a closer look at this black-necked stilt. Do we have a juvenile here? Yeah, this one's good. This one looks like a juvenile to me. The black on the neck, it's not quite as full and it's not quite as dark. So I'm going to call that one a juvenile. And then the American Avocet, as I mentioned earlier, females will have more distinctly upcurved beaks. Well, typically anyway. So let me see if I can look at this and kind of venture a guess as to what sex this one is. I'm going to say that one's probably a male, but I'm not 100% on that one. Oh yeah, look at the, so another difference, so the the American Avocet is just going to have kind of a larger, stouter body, but also look at the color of the legs. Look how bright pink the legs of the black-necked stilt are compared to the American Avocet. They're kind of like a bluish gray. They don't stand out anywhere near as much. Oh, we got a bunch of tree swallows flying over. A bunch of tree swallows. Now, I don't think there's any chance you guys can hear it, especially not with this breeze blowing, but the tree swallows are vocalizing. And that's a sound that I can't even begin to imitate. Some crows cawing away. Now, since we have some crows out here, I'm sure many of you are probably, right there. Okay. Well, we could focus on the crow on the wire if anyone is interested in that. I'm just going to talk really, really quickly about some of the differences between crows, this American crow and the common raven. That's one that I've noticed kind of trips people up a lot. Now, with this bird being perched on the wire, it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to see all the features that I'm discussing, but on the whole, crows, of course, are going to be, this American crow is going to be smaller. It's going to have a smaller beak as well. The common raven is going to have a larger beak that's noticeably more rounded on the upper mandible. And when they're flying too, there's a few things to look out for. If the bird is soaring, you've got a raven. Crows do not do that. And also look at this, if the bird is flapping, don't automatically assume it's a crow, because ravens of course do that too. But look at the tail. Remember, raven round. Ravens will have these rounder tails, whereas crows will have more squared off tails. So just keep that in mind. And crows, though a lot of people kind of hold them in disdain, do have some redeeming qualities. Despite their raucous nature, they are, as are other corvids, very smart. Okay, so we got an avocet right here foraging alongside two dowitchers. That would be fun to focus on. Okay, so we're gonna There's some dowitchers close to us foraging alongside some American Avocets. So it'll be, I'm not that anyone's going to mistake one for the other, but it'll just be a fun side by side. Oh, nice. Okay, so we've got 2 dowitchers in the foreground. Let me take a look here. I'm going to play a numbers game. I'm going to assume long-billed. Let me take off my sunglasses here for a moment and get a better look through my binoculars. Definitely non-breeding adults. I'm going to say, I'm just going to play a numbers game and say long-billed. So 2 long-billed dowitchers. Oh, we lost him. Okay. Yeah, the wind is definitely not our friend right now. Oh, yeah, there's our dowitchers again. Dowitchering away. Oh, okay. That would be, are they along this shore or along that? Okay. Well, I think that even if it's, I think we got a greater Yellowlegs closer by over there. Yeah, it's so unfortunately there are some potential leaf sandpipers behind us, but they are right in the sun and it's definitely not ideal. But I think I was talking earlier about ways to differentiate between leaf sandpipers and other peep sandpipers of a similar size, which around here the most common similarly sized sandpiper is going to be the western sandpiper. Semi-pollinated sandpipers do occur here, but that's definitely a lot more rare. So just a few quick ways to differentiate between non-breeding adult leaf sandpipers and non-breeding adult western sandpipers. Especially these differences will actually be fairly conspicuous if you see them side by side. The leaf sandpipers are a little bit smaller, and it is actually fairly noticeable when you see them close to one another. And not only that, the western sandpiper on the whole is just going to appear paler because the non-breeding adults are going to have this, they're both going to have white bellies, but the leaf sandpipers will have this, non-breeding adults will have a brown breastband, kind of a brown head and a brownish backside, whereas the western sandpiper will have a wider breast with just like a slight hint of a gray breastband, and they're going to have this pale gray backside. So they're just going to appear paler overall. And not only that, the western sandpiper is going to have a slightly longer beak with a more pronounced droop to it. The leaf sandpiper is going to have, it's going to have a drooped beak as well, but it's going to be shorter. And the droop, for the most part, I'd say is not as obvious. And of course, the western sandpiper is going to have darker legs, whereas the leaf sandpiper is going to have the kind of yellowish legs, nowhere near as bright as what you'd see in a greater or lesser Yellowlegs, of course, but you don't want to rely on that exclusively because their legs can become muddied, or there's going to be instances where you just can't even see them. Let's see here. I wish those leaf sandpipers would come closer. I'd love for people to actually see them. But of course, we can't really control what these birds are going to do. You don't have a heck of a lot of say in that, unfortunately. Goals vocalizing.
Yeah, almost to the corner.
Oh, okay. Actually, that looks so. I think we will be able to focus on the leaf sandpipers. It's not going to be the most ideal vantage point, especially not, considering that we'll be facing the sun. But it's better. It's still a poor view is still better than you guys just listening to me ramble on and on about them. So we're going to see if we can get focused on those leaf sandpipers. Oh, sorry, guys. So I was standing in the way of the camera. Oops. Okay. So right now they're not quite in focus yet, but you might have noticed a moment ago you got these tiny little objects. They didn't quite look like birds yet, just these tiny little objects just kind of scurrying along the edge of the water. Those are our leaf sandpipers. One thing to note about them too is that you won't just find them on the water's edge. A lot of times out here, driving down the roads, we'll actually see them foraging right in the middle of the road too. And they kind of, oh, Judy, there's a bunch of red ants there. Just watch where you're standing. Yeah, a lot of times they'll forage right out in the middle of the road. Oh, we have an American Kestrel that just landed on the power line. Right in, okay, well, it almost landed and then it took off, unfortunately. Let me see if I can tell whether this is a male or female. Comes in close enough. Come on, let me see you. That looks like a female to me. Oh yeah, it's a female American Kestrel. Okay, so these tiny, tiny little guys, these are our least sandpipers. Now, not a great view, unfortunately, because they're pretty far away from us. But you can kind of see just how absolutely tiny they are. Oh, another fun thing when it comes to identifying least sandpipers and telling them apart from other similarly sized sandpipers. So there are, you've probably heard me say the phrase peep sandpipers. So that's a group of sandpipers that are just very, very tiny and can present a very unique ID challenge. Well, here in North America, we've got 5 of these peep species. We've got the least sandpiper, western sandpiper, semi-palmated, white-rumped, and Baird's. Another feature to key in on when trying to narrow it down is the length of the folded wings compared to the tail. The least sandpiper, the western sandpiper, and the semi-palmated sandpiper, their folded wings will be roughly equal to the length of the tail, whereas in your white rump sandpiper and your Baird sandpiper, their folded wings will be longer than the tail. So just a fun little thing to note. Let's see here. Yep. Oh, yeah. Those. Oh, and there goes a black-necked stilt, kind of stealing the show there. He's video bombing a little bit. Check the chat messages. All right, no questions yet. Just a few people thanking us. Oh, I think I'm in your way there, George. I'm sorry. Oh, I just heard the leasties vocalize.
Let's try the other way. Oh, there they are.
Oh, there they are, right there. Oh, they're so cute. Again, world's smallest shorebird.
Hard to see detail, but
yeah, there's a bit of heat shimmer there, and the wind, as I've mentioned a few times, is definitely not helping us. But as I mentioned earlier, this place is not, I mean, it's a wonderful birding destination, but you can't just come out here and go birding. You do need to make arrangements. So I'm going to jump into the chat box right now, and I'm going to send you an email address of the person to contact if you want to visit this place. Essentially, you just tell her who you are and when you want to, what day and what times you want to come visit. I think the earliest they open, I think they open at 7. I don't think anyone can come any earlier than that. I'm not sure how late you can stay. I've never stayed past noon. But yeah, I'm going to give you Jennifer Loving's email, and this is who you will reach out to. Okay, drop her email real quick, guys. Bear with me. Oh, I heard California Scrub Jay. Okay, awesome. So I just dropped a a message in the chat. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, okay. Oh, we've got a female American Kestrel. Nice. Now the males and female. Oh, guys, we have the leaf sandpipers right here, right over there. So, female American Kestrels are very easy to tell apart from the males, and that's one thing that's kind of unique. A lot of times among raptors or among birds of prey, as far as plumage goes, it can be difficult to tell the males and females apart. American Kestrels are very easy to tell apart by plumage alone. Okay, so we've got our leaf sandpipers here in view. And these all, let me look through my binoculars without my sunglasses on. And so I can say for sure that these are all non-breeding adults. It's all look to be non-breeding adults. So these guys are gonna have these whitish bellies, kind of brownish, pale brownish backsides, pale brownish head, pale brownish breastband. If they were juveniles, they would actually be a lot flashier than this. They would have these kind of a lot of bright rufous throughout the backside. So the juveniles are actually a lot more handsome than the non-breeding adults. But these guys all have these pale brownish backsides. So I'm going to call each and every one of these non-breeding adults. It's kind of hard to tell from these images, but the folded wings are equal to the length of the tail. So that's another clue. And you see, notice that, oh yeah, that's great. And notice too, that slight droop to the beak. Nice, so I'm so glad that we finally got a look at one of these guys. This is way better than me just blabbing on and on about it. Well, it is after 10. So we'll look at this guy for another moment and then we'll probably go ahead and close out here. Okay. All right, so we'll look at this guy for another moment and then we will, oh, the sun's really bright, I apologize. We'll go ahead and call it a day. But before we do that, I want to thank all of you for attending today. Thank all of you for bearing with us as we worked to find more things to look at. You never ever know what you're going to get in one particular location. Things vary from day to day and from moment to moment. But yeah, again, thank all of you so much for joining us. If you're interested in visiting this place, check out the message that I dropped in the chat box. We'll probably get off here in another 30 seconds to a minute, so you've got about that length of time to check that out. Jennifer Loving's email is in there, and she's the one that you want to contact to make arrangements to visit this place. But yeah, it's absolutely wonderful this time of year, and it will be for the next few months as well. Definitely fall through early spring, in my opinion, are the best months to visit this place. But yeah, again, thank you all so very much for joining us. And we don't have any set plans for any other virtual field trip locations just yet, but we will be working on that. So stay tuned for some announcements on that and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, everybody.